Morning. Good morning, all. It is a pleasure and honor to be here. It is now 11:01, and we want to start on time. And is Joseph around, so Joseph can call the roll, and then we'll take off from there. There's Joseph coming out right now. Joseph?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So I will conduct the roll call for today. Starting off with Dennis Walcott,
I am definitely present.
Kai Ki Wong, Marilyn Go, Kristen Johnson, Maf Uden,
Present.
Yvonne Collado,
Present.
Lisa Soren,
She's finding a spot right now.
Mark Wazell,
Present.
Kevin Hanratty, Maria Mateo, Joshua Sneps, Kevin Sullivan, Gregory Kirschenbaum, Michael Schnall.
Present virtually.
Thank you. Darren Porcher,
Present virtually. Thanks for starting on time.
and that is the roll call for today.
And thank you. As others join us, we'll have them introduce themselves to the audience and to the general public as well. And one of the things I'll talk about in several minutes, not at this moment, is the commitment of the group of commissioners who are sitting here and who are also part of our virtual world. And why I say that, because we have one of our commissioners who's sitting in a waiting room at the airport right now. And so I know he is on a clock, so we don't want to be accused of having him miss his plane. Commissioner Schnall, we will adjust our program accordingly and give you the appropriate time in a little while before you have to catch your transportation to your flight. And with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to our Executive Director, the outstanding Dr. John Flateau. Dr. Flateau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, New Yorkers. The Executive Director's report is the item that I'm about to share with you. It is a narrative of the district by district changes from the preliminary plan from July 15th to the proposed revised plan that is under consideration at this meeting today. This proposed revised plan is the collective work of your commissioners and the bright and best staff of New York in the city of New York. And I would like to have our general audience at least give an acknowledgement to our commissioners and staff and all of this hard work in lightning speed and with a whole range of new mandates that brought us to where we are right now. Let me go right to, I'm going to, as I narrate each of the districts, let's start, we'll go through each borough and each district also in lightning speed.
And Dr. Flateau, we've been joined by Judge Go. So Judge, welcome as well.
Julia. So we're going to start with Manhattan. District District 1 at the south end of Manhattan. This is where we are. According to the proposed revised plan, District 1 consists of Chinatown, Battery Park City, Tribeca, Soho, the Financial District, Governor's Island, and Greenwich Village. This district was overpopulated by nearly 12,000 persons. This district remains mostly intact with little changes, small changes. We'll go heading north on the island of Manhattan to District 2, 1 to 2. District 2 consists of the Lower East Side, the East Village, and parts of Kips Bay, Murray Hill, and Gramercy Park. This district was slightly overpopulated by about 800 people. The southern boundary of this district is now Houston Street, and clearly on the east side to the East River. Then we're moving north. Chair, we have two commissioners.
Yep, I'm waiting for you to have your break for a second. And we've been joined by Commissioner Soren, Commissioner Schneps, and online we also have Commissioner Kirschenbaum. So I think we have a full house of commissioners today, both in person as well as virtually.
So we now are in District 3 in Manhattan on the west side. District 3 consists of Hell's Kitchen, West Village, West Soho, Hudson Yards, parts of Times Square, Flatiron, and the Upper West Side. District 3 was overpopulated, nearly 30,000 persons. There were clear testimony that Hell's Kitchen wanted to be kept intact, that was previously divided in the preliminary plan, and this particular objective was accomplished with the revised plan. Moving north, actually to the east side, District 4. District 4 consists of Stuyvesant Town, Peter Cooper Village, Times Square, East Midtown, and parts of the Upper East Side. District 4 was overpopulated by over 11,000 persons. So that some of these boundaries were adjusted to take account the requirement for population adjustments. Moving north on the east side, District 5 in Manhattan. District 5 consists of parts of the Upper East Side, Yorkville, and Roosevelt Island. District 5 was overpopulated by over 8,000 persons. And it includes now Roosevelt Island, Upper East Side, and Yorkville, particularly in response to changes to the preliminary plan, where there was a Queens Manhattan crossover district, and that no longer exists in the revised plan. District 6, Manhattan, Upper West Side. This district consists of Central Park, Clinton, Upper West Side, and Lincoln Square. This district was overpopulated by over 8,000 persons. The entirety of Central Park remains in this District 6 in the proposed revised plan. Moving north on the west side, District 7. District 7 consists of Manhattan Valley, Morningside Heights, Hamilton Heights, Manhattanville, parts of Washington Heights. District 7 was underpopulated by over 7,000 persons. The district boundaries changed slightly to increase to make up that deficit of populations. And on the north end, this area called the East 660s was added to District 7. Moving to the east side, Manhattan, District 8. District 8 consists of El Barrio, Spanish East Harlem in Manhattan, and a portion of the Bronx, South Bronx, Mott Haven, High Bridge, Concourse, Longwood, and Port Morris. This continues to be a Manhattan Bronx cross-borough district. District 9. District 9 consists of Harlem, Hamilton Heights, and parts of Manhattanville. This district was overpopulated by almost 6,000 persons. Additionally, testimony from residents asked to ensure that Schaumburg Plaza, Lakeview Apartments, and Polo Grounds remained in District 9. Going north, the northernmost district in Manhattan, District 10. 10 consists of Washington Heights, Inwood, and Marble Hill. District 10 was underpopulated by over 14,000 persons. Parts of the southern boundary, therefore, was moved slightly lower in District 10. We are moving on now to the next borough, the Bronx, Districts 11 through 18. Maybe a little larger. So, District 11. District 11 consists of parts of Kingsbridge, Riverdale, North Riverdale, Spoyton, Dival, Bedford Park, Norwood, Woodlawn, and Wakefield, as well as Van Cortlandt Park. And this district was over 7,000 underpopulated. And slight border changes have made done to that district to bring its population requirement into focus. Next over is District 12. It consists of Eastchester, Williamsbridge, Co-op City, and parts of Wakefield. There was a population growth in District 12, and it was actually overpopulated by 4,000 persons. So slight adjustments were made, and the lower boundary is now along Arnow Avenue and East Gun Hill Road, as well as Gun Hill houses are contained in the 12. Now District 13, which consists of Pelham Bay, Pelham Gardens, Van Ness, Morris Park, Bronxdale, Throgs Neck, Schuylerville, Country Club, and City Island. This district was underpopulated by over 5,000 people. Van Ness neighborhood was specifically asked to be contained in District 13 in whole as a neighborhood. Next district is District 14. Where are you hiding? 14. West Bronx, 14, District 14. It contains parts of Kingsbridge Heights, and University Heights. This district was underpopulated by more than 3,800 people. So adjustments were made to that district as well, and Kingsbridge Armory and surrounding business corridors of this landmark were restored to the District 14th District. Next district, 15. It consists of Bedford Park, Fordham, Mount Hope, Bathgate, Belmont, East Tremont, West Farms, Allerton, and Olinville. This district was slightly overpopulated and minor adjustments to its borders. District 16. It consists of Claremont, Concourse Village, High Bridge, Morris Heights, Mount Eden, and Morrisania. This district was slightly underpopulated by 2,000 persons, and that district's boundaries were slightly adjusted to bring into compliance. District 17. It consists of Concourse Village, Catrona Park East, East Tremont, Hunts Point, Longwood, Melrose, Morrisania, Port Morris, West Farms, North Brother Island, and South Brother Island. And this district was slightly overpopulated by 1,000 people. The neighborhood of Longwood, additionally, and Concourse Village were maintained its entire complex in District 17. District 18 consists of Soundview, Castle Hill, Parkchester, Clawson Point, and Harding Park. This was overpopulated by almost 9,000 people. Westchester Square and Soundview are also contained in this district, and border adjustments to bring population in compliance were made in that district. We are now going to Queens. Starting with District 19. This district consists of Auburndale, Bay Terrace, Bayside, Beechhurst, College Point, Douglaston, Flushing, Little Neck, Malba, and Whitestone. This district was underpopulated by over 5,000 people. Therefore, minor adjustments to its boundaries were made. And the entirety of Bayside Village, BID, Business Improvement District, and a number of LIR train stations in that area were included in that district. The next district, District 20. It consists of downtown Flushing, Murray Hill, and Queensboro Hill. This was slightly underpopulated by about 1,000 people. We were asked to also include Mitchell Linden in that district, and other minor boundary adjustments were made. The next district, 21. This consists of Corona, parts of Elmhurst, East Elmhurst, and Jackson Heights. This district was underpopulated by approximately 1,700 people. It also retained LaGuardia Airport, Flushing Meadow Park within this district, as well as Lefrak City. Next district, 22 in Queens. 22. 22. This consists of Astoria, East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, and Woodside. This district was heavily underpopulated by over 13,000 people. So adjustments were required to the borders of that district. Ravenswood, Queensbridge districts are in that. No, they're in 26. They came out of the preliminary plan. This District 22 also unifies the Steinway Street BID as requested as well. District 22. District 23, Queens. Here we are. This district consists of Glen Oaks, Fresh Meadows, and Belrose. This was heavily underpopulated by over 12,000 persons. Its main boundaries are still intact, but population boundaries were made to adjust to bring it into compliance for required population. Next district, 24. Consists of Kew Garden Hills, Pomonic, Electchester, Fresh Meadows, Hillcrest, Jamaica Estates, Briarwood, Parkway Village, Jamaica Hills, and Jamaica. This district was underpopulated by nearly 7,000 persons. So boundaries had to be made adjusted. We received testimony from Jewish residents in the area required or requested that Hillcrest remain intact within 1224, which it does. District 25. District 25 consists of Elmhurst and Jackson Heights. This was slightly underpopulated by 600 persons, and the boundaries were largely kept intact, and the 82nd Street BID was also unified in that district. It received also testimony from residents that they were south of Queens Boulevard, requested to be moved into District 30, and that request was also accommodated. The next district, Council District 26. It consists of Sunnyside, Woodside, Long Island City, Astoria, and Dutch Kills. This district was originally overpopulated by almost 11,000 persons. This district is now based entirely in Queens, which was in the preliminary plan linked to Manhattan. That Manhattan West Queens district no longer exists. It's been delinked. District 27. District 27 consists of Cambria Heights, Hollis, Jamaica, St. Albans, Queens Village, and Springfield Gardens. This district was very slightly underpopulated. This district now, as requests from public testimony, requested unification of the downtown Jamaica Central Business District, which is now in District 7, along with 3 business improvement districts, all unified in one district. District 28. It consists of Jamaica, Richmond Hill, Rochdale Village, and South Ozone Park. District 28 was overpopulated by 10,000 persons. The boundaries of District 28 have been slightly revised, moving close to the Merrick Boulevard corridor. As well, Ozone Park is primarily united into this one district. Next district is 29. It consists of Rego Park, Forest Hills, Kew Gardens, and Richmond Hills. This district was underpopulated, over 8,000 persons, and required adjustments to its boundaries. It remains anchored with Forest Hills, Rego Parks, and Kew Gardens. Next district is District 30. District 30. It consists of Glendale, Maspeth, Middle Village, Ridgewood, Woodhaven, and Woodside. This district was underpopulated by almost 6,000 persons. In response to testimony, Elmhurst Triangle was near Woodhaven Boulevard, have been included in District 30. District 31. District 31. It consists of Auburn, Brookville, Edgemere, Rockaway, Laurelton, Rosedale, and Springfield Gardens. It was just slightly overpopulated and retains most of its current district lines. Additional testimony wanted the JFK Airport kept in this district. 31. 32. 32. District, it consists of Ozone Park, Howard Beach, and Woodhaven. It was underpopulated by over 7,000 persons and required some boundary adjustments. Now we are moving to Brooklyn.
Hey, John, I don't want to shortchange the other boroughs, but I also want to be conscious of our commissioner who's sitting in the airport. So continue on. But
Whenever I'm
No.
interrupted,
No,
I
don't want
can
to
always
interrupt the
come
other
back.
boroughs because I think we should have full context. So just want to let you know if you could just speed it up a little.
Okay. Oh, you shortchanging Brooklyn, huh?
Not at all, sir.
Hey. Okay. Yes, sir. Wow. We have the most districts to run through.
No.
So this is going to be a lightning round. Pay attention. District 33. This is the waterfront district. Northern Brooklyn, Borum Hill, Brooklyn Heights, Navy Yard, Dumbo, Fulton Ferry. It is the largest overpopulated district in the city, along with the West Side. So clearly there needed a lot of adjustments along 33. And there's an important population in Williamsburg. The Jewish community was kept intact there. Next district, 34, coming around. This is the only Latino voting rights district in the borough. It was slightly underpopulated. It is a cross borough. That little horn you see is actually going over the Queens line. And it has been that way for the last 20 years, decades. And that minor adjustments were made. Coming in, 35 right here. Very minor changes to the current district boundaries of 35. And you could say similarly for 36. And you'll hear more about these central Brooklyn districts and the Southeast Queens when we hear from our expert, Dr. Hanley, a little later. Let's go to 37. This is another district, was very underpopulated by over 9,000 people. It currently consists of South Bushwick, Cypress Hills, parts of Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and Wyckoff Heights. No major adjustments to 37. 38. Consists now of Red Hook, most of Sunset Park, and parts of Park Slope, Windsor Terrace, Dyker Heights, and a small portion of Bensonhurst. Next district, 39. Carroll Gardens. Gowanus, Park Slope, parts of Windsor Terrace, Kensington, and Prospect Park. It was slightly overpopulated and minor adjustments were made. Next district, 40. Covers Dismiss Park, East Flatbush, parts of Lefferts Gardens, and Prospect Park South. It was severely underpopulated by 17,000 people. So a lot of adjustments had to be made to make that 40 come into compliance for population requirements. Next district, 41. Consists of mainly Ocean Hill, Brownsville, small parts of East Flatbush and Crown Heights. It was also underpopulated by almost 9,000 people, 41, and some minor adjustments around its borders, therefore, had to be made. Next district, 42. 42. Mainly East New York, Brownsville. It was slightly underpopulated as well, over 4,000 people. Slightly adjustments were made. The next district after 42, 43. This is a newly drawn councilmanic district there in South Brooklyn. It consists primarily of Sunset Park, parts of Dyker Heights, and Bensonhurst. It is a new district created that research showed and census that there's a very large new and growing Asian American population in that area. And the commission created a new district. You'll hear more again from Dr. Hanley about that new district. Next district, 44. 44. consists of Borough Park, Midwood, Gravesend, and Mapleton. And there was express request to try to unite the Borough Park and Midwood portion, major part of those neighborhoods together in one district. 44. 45 consists of Flatbush, East Flatbush, Flatlands, and a small part of Midwood. It was severely underpopulated by over 15,000 people, and therefore adjustments had to be made along those borders to balance that population for 45. Next district, 46, 45, 46. It consists of Gerritsen Beach, Mill Basin, Canarsie, Georgetown, and parts of Flatlands. It was slightly overpopulated by about 4,000 people. So along the borders, slightly adjustments were made for that 46. Next district, 47. 47. Consists of Bay Ridge, parts of Dyker Heights, Bath Beach, Gravesend, Coney Island, and Seagate. The shape of this district results from the creation of that 43. So there was a small corridor needed to unite these two neighborhoods that expressed requests to be united in one district. 47, 48 consists of Manhattan Beach, Brighton Beach, Sheepshead Bay, and Midwood. This district was overpopulated by almost 8,000 people. Therefore, 48, some slight adjustments along its borders were made to bring it into population compliance. We're leading to our last wonderful borough, Staten Island. Staten Island, 48, now we're going to 49. 49 consists of, that's the North Shore District, Arlington, Clifton, Clove Lakes, Concord, Elm Park, Graniteville, Marines Harbor, and a number of other neighborhoods on that North Shore. It was slightly underpopulation. Some minor adjustments were made to the 49th district proposed. The Mid-Island District, 50. And this, how you might want to describe it, a thumb, that is actually a piece of Brooklyn. The Mid-Island is now connected by the Verrazano Bridge and takes in a small portion of Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, on the other side of that bridge to help balance the populations for the 3 Staten Island districts. And there were some changes along the Mid-Island 50th district boundaries. And on the Brooklyn side, it takes in Fort Hamilton, that rectangle, Fort Hamilton base, the VA hospital, Dyker Beach Park, and a few other blocks. That's the 50th. And then the last district is the 51st, consisting of, that's 51, South Shore District on Staten Island. Annandale, Arden Heights, Bay Terrace, Charleston, Great Kills, and a number of neighborhoods throughout that South Shore community. It was underpopulated by over 13,000, so adjustments made across those 3 Staten Island districts so that all 51 districts throughout the city are in compliance with the new 5% state mandated deviation. And there are, just to highlight very briefly, there are 29 majority minority districts. That's more than half of the districts in the city of New York in this revised plan. And you will get more details now on that last point. Should I stop or hand off? Okay. We'll hear from our next presenter after we hear from the chair.
So what
Thank
I would
you.
like to do with the commissioner's permission is to call for a vote, and then we'll have Dr. Hanley speak afterwards. And this is out of respect to our commissioner who has to take off. We want to make sure all votes are recorded. And in addition to that, just to add to that part of the discussion, that when you do vote, obviously, we always have our back and forth with each other. So as you vote, you can feel free to talk about your vote if you so desire. In addition to that, I just want the commission to know how much I appreciate all the commissioners, all the hard work, people who had to postpone vacations, people who were sick, the commitment, the publications that we got out into 70 newspapers, multiple languages, over 9,600 responses. We have been out in the community, people meeting individually, and we have laid a foundation for the feedback that we received to influence it. And the way Dr. Flateau laid it out, I wish it was that easy in our discussions, because as we know, every change that is made has a domino effect on something else. And we have been very hopefully considerate, and where it needs to be adjusted, if the vote is passed, then that will be on the city council to either accept or put it back to us, and then we'll have another round of public hearings and then move it from there. I just want the commission to know that I'm honored to be a part of this and honored that the mayor asked me to join. And I think that we are well served in serving the public. And if there's a motion to entertain for so move, is there a second? Is there a second for the vote? Seconds around, so multiple
second.
seconds. And if the transcriber, do you need the names as well, council? So Ma is the originator of the motion, and I saw Josh Schneps, and I saw Kristen also second, so, and Lisa
I
Soren,
second the motion.
and I hear Dr. Portia as well, so we have a number of seconds on the table. Commissioner Schnall, knowing of your timeline, and I think I see you up in the top corner, and I want to make sure I don't get accused of delaying you for other reasons. The floor is yours, sir, for a vote.
Thank you, Chair Walcott, and I really, really appreciate the ability to vote now so that I can catch my flight back, come back to the city that I love, see my family, see all of you. So I just want to provide some quick context on my vote. And again, thank Chair Walcott for allowing me to speak for a few minutes. Since the last vote in July, a lot has happened. We've met in all 5 boroughs. We've hosted a lot of virtual participation. We've seen over 9,500 pieces of testimony. We've had meetings learning about racial block voting, hundreds of hours of mapping sessions, thousands of staff hours. We made every intention and effort to think about, deliberate, and incorporate all the feedback we've received. It's an incredible amount of hard work and energy and dedication that went in, and I am so thankful for everyone's participation, the staff's hard work, the education I've gotten from this whole process, and feel honored to be here. With that said, I wanted to make 3 quick points to explain my vote. First, I learned a long time ago that it's often best to listen and rely on others with expertise when you don't have any. And so this applied to my work on the commission. And I took the position that if I wasn't intimately familiar with a neighborhood, I would listen, observe, but not inject my uninformed viewpoint. And what I saw during this last round of mapping was a little unsettling and frankly unfair. A few individuals undid some of the work of the many, often at the last minutes of a mapping session, which got finalized in these maps. Frankly, I think it's unfair to the countless members of the public who took time to testify, and a little disrespectful to the work of our staff and fellow commissioners. Second, process matters. Some lawyers will tell you that if you cannot argue substance, you argue process. And in this instance, I'm talking about both. But since July, most of our meetings have been held during the workday. Short notice was given for some, and it made navigating the process and being present very difficult. I know, including myself, did everything we could to the best of our abilities to participate as much as possible, but it was very challenging. And I know we could do better, but I know that we also can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So I know that if we go further in this process, we will do things better. Third, and my last point, is that the two boroughs with the most to lose in the second round of drafting did, the Bronx and Staten Island. So for the record, I wholly oppose the dilution of Bronx political power with the change in the ratio of Council District 8, which now favors Manhattan. Rebalancing this district would have taken some really, really hard work, but I think it would have been worth the effort to better balance the district and restore the power that Bronx deserves. And I know that I'm a broken record on this, and I resent the fact that Staten Island has been blamed for all the troubles identified in the first draft. The reality is that there are three things that caused more issues than anything else: a 5% deviation handed down from Albany without any challenge or pushback from the law department, a newly redrawn South Brooklyn district, and intentionally underpopulated districts. So when it comes to vilifying Staten Island, and there's been a lot of that recently, frankly, it's cliche. I've heard it my entire life. I'm tired of it, and enough is enough. Staten Island deserves the same respect and chance at self-determination that the other boroughs enjoy. And speaking of Staten Island, and most importantly, why I am voting the way I am adamantly opposed to the addition of approximately 16,000 people from Brooklyn to Council District 50. This move disenfranchises those 16,000 people who deserve adequate and accessible representation. They will have to pay a $20 toll and drive 10 miles to see their council member. This is unfair, inequitable, and completely avoidable. This Brooklyn addition dilutes Staten Island's political power and sets the borough back 10 years in the progress we've made to establish ourselves and chart our own future as a borough. So as such, and as the only Staten Islander on this commission, and for all the reasons above, I vote no. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me the grace and privilege to vote right now, and I will see you back in New York.
Thank you, Commissioner Schnall. Have a safe flight. Look forward to seeing you back in New York. And with that being said, I will call the roll, and I will start with the Commission's permission with myself. And I will vote yes for this plan. And in addition to what I heard the Commissioner say, Commissioner Schnall, I believe both in the substance and the process. And I think the substance and the process has been adhered to. I think the number of community meetings, the input from individuals, as well as the dialogue back and forth, including Commissioner Schnall and others, as far as the line drawing with the mappers as well, has been extremely beneficial to the process. And again, I think the challenge is making sure that we don't undermine all the hard work and allow the process to unfold to the next step, because I think the commission has done an excellent job in meeting its responsibility and its due diligence. And for that reason, I vote yes. Commissioner Collado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wholeheartedly agree with those comments. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the staff, the commission, and everyone who's put in countless hours into these maps. Thank you. And most importantly, the public for their input, which was our guiding light in this process. And with that, I vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Go.
Thank you, Chair. Chairman Walcott. I join in your in the praise that we've heard for the public, because voting is such an important right to this country. And interestingly, I'm a judge by training and a lawyer by training. It's interesting that the Constitution never explicitly protects the right to vote, but voting appears in the Constitution many times. And the concept of equiproportionality is so important to our life. We want to be fair, and we want every vote to have the same weight. So I do feel Commissioner Schnall's pain about Staten Island. I think the people in Staten Island were wonderful. We were very impressed with them in coming up with the preliminary plans. But ultimately, the principle of one person, one vote, equiproportionality governs. And so I do know that I've received some requests to delay the vote. And I share some of Commissioner Small's reservations about the process. I wish people had had the chance to see these final maps that we are voting on. However, the maps were made after consideration of many comments, many hours of hearings, many consultations with the map makers. And I really do thank the public. How many districting commissions can have the privilege of receiving over 9,000 comments? That is a credit to John Q. Public. Thank you. I applaud all of you who are here, who are not reporters. Thank you for bearing with us. And that being said, and being so long-winded about it, I vote yes in favor, even though I have no problems with delaying this vote to consider additional comments. I think the outreach has been fabulous. We've received wonderful responses, and there's just no reason for further delay and consideration by the city council.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hanratty.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say that it's an honor to serve on this commission. I feel privileged to be here. And I'd like to thank Chairman Walcott and all my fellow commissioners and Dr. John Flateau and the entire staff for all the hard work they've put in. However, at this time, I will be voting no on this proposal because of what's perceived to be the adverse effect on certain communities of interest and certain competitive districts. So my vote this time would be a no. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanratty. Commissioner Mateo.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to join in the comments of all the commissioners, thanking the hard work, all the hours of the staff, and especially the commissioners who've been putting so many hours and a lot of work into making these maps come into fruition. With that being said, there have been, even though we have been making great strides as to making the districts much better, there have been a lot of public comments from my Dominican community, especially in some districts in Manhattan, specifically the second one and the seventh one. And my Dominican community has grave concerns about the diluting of the Dominican vote. For those reasons and some others that we will address in due time, I believe that there is still work to be done before we submit the maps to the city council. So I'm voting no.
Thank you, Commissioner Mateo. Commissioner Schnips.
My vote is no. Largely it's because this has been an incredibly thorough process. And I would say that the amount of time that I spent on it is a lot, and that's nothing compared to the staff here. But just hearing some of the feedback here, just the end of the process has been really too quick for us to even hear each other's feedback for a final decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Schnips. Commissioner Soren.
Sorry, I almost broke that. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm going to echo, this has been a process like nothing other. And I've learned a lot. I will say that I want to move on to the next process. Selfishly, I'm going to be completely honest and say that what I don't want is another huge round of public hearings, because I think that among ourselves, there's been so much debate, so much conversation. We've listened to the testimony, but there's still a lot to be heard. There's still conversations among the commission, and I need to hear more from the Hispanic community. So for that reason, I vote no.
Thank you, Commissioner Soren. Commissioner Sullivan.
I want to just emphasize that the vote we are taking today is not to approve this plan. As the draft letter of the chairman to the Speaker of the City Council says, it is to present it to them for their consideration. So this is not an approval of this plan. It is to take it to the next stage of the process. So it's for that reason that I believe, given all the hard work that has been done, I think it is time for us to hear from the city council itself on this plan. And if the city council chooses to send it back to us for the additional work to deal with any of the deficiencies or any things in the plan. For that reason, I am voting that we do present this plan for the consideration of the city council, as in Chairman Walcott's letter to the speaker.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Wong.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm such honored to be sitting there as chair, as commissioner. First of all, I have to thank all the people. John is the team worked so hard and diligently, but I have some suggestion for the mapping working. Since I work city for 35 years, I know the zoning is so important because with New York City, we have 58 zoning districts, but the district for the voting is 57. That all the zoning district is changing constantly, and every day they're doing upgrade and downgrade. They're going to affect the population. For example, Long City Special District, before it's M1-1, the zoning is a rundown area, it's a manufacturer zone. Today, you can see Long City, they have 5 different sub-districts for zoning, and they have constructed the building, 60-story building, mixed-use building, increased population, certainly. So the zoning is also affected population so quickly, and we are maybe it's not follow so fast. We have 10 years to redo the district map, but the zoning map, they change constantly. So we have to incorporate with the zoning map, and some kind of synchronization to consider the zoning map and district map. That's my idea. Thanks.
And your vote is, sir? You vote
Temporary, I say no.
no? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Next is Commissioner Udi.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. It is an honor that I sit with these distinguished people. We have worked very hard. I want to thank you, the staff, especially Dr. John Plato and Chair, you have been so kind. I think the most important thank you deserve our community. Over 9,000 people testified in different ways, in different format, twice in each boroughs. And the commissioner was so kind. Everybody gave their time, thoughts, analysis, and we arrived here. I agree with the commissioner that this is the process. We have preliminary maps on July 15. We received feedback. We worked harder. And now September 22nd, we are going to send to the city council. If city council wants to do some of those redo things or do better, we have time to do that. And that is why I am going to vote yes. And with that, I want to thank you, everyone who is here. And just to let you know how proud, how honored I am, because I think this is one of the commission that I have seen in the last 38 years in this country, most diverse, most intelligent, and most analytical. And so I feel so proud that I am part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Johnson.
Hi, everyone. So I'll start out with my vote. My vote is a yes to the current iteration of the maps. And I want to echo the thanks to my fellow commissioners, to the staff. I mean, it's clear a lot of work has gone into this, including the public's work, right? And so the one thing I will say is, I think part of the hard work is how do we reconcile all of the public comments, right? Include, like, there's conflicting testimony, right? It's not all kumbaya in all the comments. So how do we reconcile that with the reality of complying with the voting rights, the Constitution, the Voting Rights Act, the city charter? And I believe this commission has worked hard to do that. And so my vote is yes for the current iteration of the map.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kirschenbaum?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's just afternoon. I want to echo a lot of the same sentiment that has been mentioned by my fellow commissioners. I think the staff has worked extremely hard, incorporating a lot of the feedback that we received from the public here. And I want to thank all of the public members who came out to the public hearings in person and submitted testimony electronically and via Zoom. By no means do I think that this is the most perfect map in the history of the world, but I do think that we made a lot of progress and put a lot of time into this, and that the time is now to send it to the next step, which is submitting it to the New York City Council. If there is feedback or things that need to be tweaked, I think we're all happy to review that. But I vote yes in the moving forward with this process. And I just want to echo again, thanking everybody for their hard work on this process.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Portial?
Thank you. First, I want to give a special thank you to our chair, Dennis Walcott. I think you did an amazing job dealing with a polarizing topic in connection with the redistricting of the city of New York. Dr. Plateau, your efforts were phenomenal in organizing one of the most Herculean feats that's known to the city's history. I think that we as a commission did a great job in exchanging our ideas, especially in connection with the public hearings, because on many instances, we may have had diametric opposition to specific topics. However, I believe that we coalesced behind the ultimate goal, and that was to support the democracy of the city of New York to ensure that the redistricting process was sound. That being said, I had a number of concerns, more so specific to Staten Island, Brooklyn South specifically, and Manhattan, which I felt that there were some very challenging issues that were introduced that I don't think were fully satisfied in connection with the redistricting. So as a result of that, I'm voting no, and I'm hopeful that we can get to a point where we can all, I know it's not going to be 100%, but eventually I believe that we can coalesce behind a strategy that supports the 8.75 million residents of the city of New York to ensure the voting process is sound moving forward. So in synopsis, my vote is no.
Thank you, Commissioner Portia. Commissioner Wurzel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too would like to acknowledge the hard work and long hours that our staff, our MAP team from District R, our consultants, our volunteer commissioners have invested in this process to date. I'd also like to thank the thousands of New Yorkers who testified and participated in this process. I'd also like to thank, on behalf of the commissioners and the staff, our families, and as it applies to commissioners, many of our employers who have tolerated and supported us through this time-consuming process. Unlike the preliminary plan, which I supported as a working draft, I cannot support the formal submission of this districting plan to the City Council because I don't think it meets an acceptable standard that addresses all of the criteria set forth in the charter. As Commissioner Schnall said in his opening remarks, there was a false narrative after we published the preliminary plan that having 3 wholly contained districts on Staten Island was the root of each and every perceived problem with the preliminary plan. It's ironic that as soon as we, as a commission, walked away from having 3 districts on Staten Island, more problems developed. some inevitable and some self-inflicted. There are several improvements in this current plan that commissioners worked cooperatively to address. For example, this plan, as the preliminary plan, continues to meet and exceed voting and civil rights standards established by state, federal, and local law and by the courts. But there are a number of serious problems that still preclude me from endorsing this document. Quite frankly, we just ran out of time because we're adhering to an aggressive schedule and deadline that we were forced to follow. I'd rather not meet a deadline or push that deadline to get something right, rather than meet an arbitrary deadline with a less than satisfactory product. As we began this process in the spring, and as we've proceeded through it, we have been hamstrung by an unfortunate act by the governor and the legislature this past fall, to dust off a poorly drafted piece of legislation that has eviscerated the population variance that was approved by city voters and has been used to draw New York City Council districts for the past 30 years. As a result, communities like the South Brooklyn have been twisted into a mess because we have interjected a Staten Island appendage that was supposed to solve problems, but somehow triggered more of them. We've shifted a South Bronx dominated district that was connected to Manhattan to now a Manhattan dominated district that connects to Southwest Bronx. And we've twisted, divided, and cannibalized several communities in a handful of competitive, fair fight districts in Queens and Brooklyn that deeply concern me. That is an important priority for me and has been 10 and 20 years ago when I served on this very same commission, to draw balanced districts that support competitive elections. That's a basic tenet of good government. Every voter deserves a chance to elect the representatives of their choice, not just the voters who are enrolled in a certain political party and who can vote in a closed primary. Election day, not primary day, should not determine who our elected representatives are. And that's the case in fair fight competitive districts that I have long sought in this city. So I certainly plan to focus my energies to correct some of these issues when the City Council responds to this plan and we consider the modifications this fall. But I cannot lend my name to this document that we're proposing to submit to the City Council. Finally, I cannot let this opportunity pass and not express my profound disappointment that confidential maps were shared with media outlets before they were adopted or even subjected to a vote by the commissioners and not shared with the public. A plan is not a plan until it is adopted and authorized by commissioners. I do not know who thought it was a good idea to share these intimate and confidential details of the maps hours and minutes after the mapping process concluded. I do not share an assessment. Consequently, I vote no on this plan.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Rozelle. So based on the vote, we will not be submitting these plans to the City Council, and then we will reconvene to discuss our next steps. And I want to thank the commissioners, but also I do want to take advantage, since we rearranged our schedule to accommodate Commissioner Schnall. Dr. Hanley, if you don't mind giving a brief presentation, or I think it's important because you've put a lot of work into this, and I do not want to ignore all the hard work, both from the commissioners, the staff, and those experts who've been part of this process.
Well, I was going to tell you that the plan that you drew passed Voting Rights Act muster, in my opinion. I'm not sure what's going to happen now, but let me tell you how I went about doing this. I was retained by the commission to do an analysis of voting patterns by race. This is required essentially by the Voting Rights Act if you have a significant minority population. Here in New York, you have three protected minority populations that are significantly large enough to draw districts. So we're interested here in what the voting patterns of Black voters, Hispanic voters, and Asian voters are relative to white voters. So this is what I analyzed. It turns out the voting is polarized in New York City. It has been, shouldn't have been a surprise. It was 10 years ago, it was 20 years ago, it was 30 years ago. It is still. This is particularly true in Democratic primaries, but the Democratic primary is particularly important in New York City. So this is important. So what this means is that you have to draw districts that comply with the Voting Rights Act. First slide. I have some slides here. So as I said, voting is polarized in New York City, and you have to draw districts, or if you already have them, you have to maintain them in a way that allows minority voters to elect their candidates of choice. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you draw majority minority districts. An opportunity district is one that allows minorities to elect their candidates of choice. But it may be the case that there are only a plurality in the district and they get enough votes from, say, white voters or other minorities, if you're talking, say, about a Hispanic district, to elect the candidate of choice. So what I'm focusing on are districts with significant minority populations. That is the minority are Blacks, Hispanics, or Asians a majority or a plurality in the district? And those are the districts that I focused on to determine how many opportunity districts you have in the current plan and how many you will have in any proposed plan that you put forward. Okay, next slide. So how do we do this? No elections have taken place under the districts you've drawn, so we have to come up with some method, just as I used statistics to come up with a way of determining whether voting was polarized. I'm going to use a method called recompiled election results to see if you have districts that will allow each of these minority groups to elect their candidates of choice. We do this by looking at previous elections, and we call these bellwether elections, elections that were polarized previously. And we want to see, by recompiling the election results to the proposed districts, if the minority preferred candidate would carry these proposed districts. So this is how we tell if you have maintained a minority district. And here is a list of the districts, the elections that I looked at to determine if you had succeeded in drawing minority opportunity districts. Now, each of these districts in general elections, Blacks voters, Hispanic voters, and usually Asian voters vote alike, but in Democratic primaries, not necessarily so at all. So each of these groups have to be considered separately, and each of these districts have to be considered separately. Next slide. Okay, so the first thing I did was, given that voting was polarized, identify how many districts currently could be called opportunity districts for each of these groups. And I did that by determining whether the minority preferred candidate was being elected to city council. The next step was looking at the proposed districts and comparing not just the demographic composition of these districts, but because we're supposed to be doing a district-specific functional analysis, looking at possible electoral outcomes. So that's what I was going to do with each of the proposed districts. Next slide. So I'm going to go through borough by borough. Here are the data, but let me just summarize and say, so in Manhattan, you had one district, District 9, and you can see the statistics for this, what exists in the current plan and what the revised plan is. And this remains an effective, that means it's an opportunity district for Black voters. Next slide. You have 2 majority Hispanic districts that are going to remain effective. District 7 was a different story. It was a plurality Hispanic voting age population district. This was the Hispanic voting age population was decreased. The white population was increased. So now it's a plurality white district. Now the voting in this district was not polarized between Hispanics and whites. It was between Hispanics and Black voters, I believe, but not between Hispanics and whites. The current representative was supported by both Hispanics and whites, and presumably in the future, it's possible that a Hispanic can win with white support, but not with Hispanic support alone, because it's no longer a plurality Hispanic district. Next slide. Okay, so you have one majority Black district in the Bronx, and you maintained that district. It's as effective as it was in the current plan. Next slide. There are 5 majority Hispanic districts. 4 of them elect Hispanic preferred candidates. The other one is an opportunity district, but it elects a Black preferred candidate. You increase the Hispanic VAP, so it's going to trend towards a Hispanic district. It is a minority opportunity district, but not a Hispanic minority opportunity district. Next slide. This is the data for that. Next slide. So you have 2 plurality Hispanic districts, one of which is not an opportunity district. It did not elect a Hispanic preferred candidate, and the other of which that did, and that district did not change very much. So you have one plurality district that's an opportunity district that remains an opportunity district, and the other which was not and remains not an opportunity district. Again, this is not a majority district, this is a plurality district. Next slide. In Queens, you have 2 majority Black districts, and they remain effective opportunity districts for Black voters in the revised plan. Next slide. Then you have a plurality Black district that you increase the Black population, and this will increase the effectiveness of that particular district, which was already an opportunity district. Next slide. You have 1 majority Hispanic district, which changed very little and will remain an effective Hispanic district in Queens. Next slide. So there is 1 majority Asian district in the revised plan, as there was in the current plan, and is equally effective in both plans. There were 4 plurality Asian districts, 3 of which were opportunity districts for Asian voters and remain opportunity districts. And the 4th of which, District 25, although it elects an Asian, turns out that's the Asian candidate of choice of white voters. Asian voters supported a different Asian candidate, so that's not an opportunity district, and it remains not an opportunity district in the revised plan. Next slide. Next slide. In Brooklyn, you have 6 majority Black districts. They all, in the revised plan, as in the current plan, are effective or opportunity districts for Black voters. Next slide. Next slide. You have 1 district that's a majority Hispanic district, District 37, that remains essentially the same, and it is an effective Hispanic district. Next slide. So you've created a new Asian district. It is an effective Asian district. You can tell by the votes for Andrew Yang when he ran for mayor. District 38 was an Asian plurality district. And the current plan, it is an Asian plurality district. Now, it was not electing the Asian candidate of choice, it was electing the Hispanic candidate of choice. This was traditionally a Hispanic district. What the revised plan does, it maintains the same Hispanic percentage, decreases the Asian percentage, and increases the white percentage. Now, the Hispanic incumbent won with Hispanic vote and white vote. So there's no reason to believe that the current incumbent wouldn't win this district. It was Asian voters who did not support this candidate. This district, Asian voters and Hispanic voters were quite polarized in this district. Next slide. And in Staten Island, you maintained your majority minority district with essentially the same Black, Hispanic, and Asian voting age population. And finally, my conclusion, you have maintained the exact same numbers of Black and Hispanic opportunity districts in the revised plan as in the current plan, and you've increased the number of Asian districts, Asian opportunity districts by 1. And this, of course, is the fastest growing minority population. And it certainly, I would say that you would have been successfully sued had you not done that, if somebody brought a suit, because it was possible to draw one and voting in that area was very polarized. And that concludes my comments on the revised plan.
Thank you, Dr. Hanley. Any questions for Dr. Hanley? Commissioner Orzel.
Dr. Hanley, correct me if I'm wrong with this characterization. Your analysis, there are, and I think John highlighted this in his presentation, there are 29 effective performing majority districts that were part of your detailed analysis, and one additional, I guess for lack of a better way of describing it, we've used this description, a coalition district. Is that correct?
Not exactly.
So,
So,
please correct me.
So, as I said, a majority district isn't necessarily an opportunity district, and some plurality districts might be opportunity districts. Now, let me see if I can get the numbers. There are currently, let's see, 19 majority districts in which either Black, Hispanic, or Asians are a majority. All of those are effective opportunity districts, except that one of these Hispanic majority, as I mentioned, is actually a Black opportunity district. There are also a number of plurality districts, some of which are opportunity districts. So the numbers the numbers shift. So do you want to know about majority districts, plurality districts, opportunity districts?
No, the point I'm trying to get to by asking this is that these are 29 districts plus, I guess, 30 districts that if they, as we go back to the drawing board, if we maintain the demographics of those districts, your analysis moves on to cover these districts as well.
Yes.
Conclusions
yes.
and
So
analysis.
I'm not sure about your numbers, but yes, that's correct.
Well,
Again,
I just added up the numbers. I added up the
again, it's
districts in
not
your
just
report.
majority districts.
Well,
We're going to pay
I'm talking about the combination of, the majority performing,
Okay,
I
yes.
put
Okay.
everybody in the same, set, to, ask my question, if we, as we move forward, if we keep these districts, the demographics of these districts somewhat comparable to where they are now, they would meet the standards of voting rights, civil rights, local law, and court findings about polarized voting.
With the caveat that it's not just the demographics. You're going to look at recompiled election results as well, because it has to be a functional analysis. But yes.
Thank you.
So to take Commissioner Orzel's question to a different level and also trying to tie it together as far as next steps, we would still have to make sure that you are reviewing what we propose to make sure that we're in compliance, no matter where those districts are, if there's any reconfiguration that meets a new need as identified by other commissioners. That role that you play is still extremely important as far as those next steps are concerned.
If these districts that I've identified as opportunity districts are modified, I would have to review them. That's correct.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Dr. Hanley? So for next steps, since we are not submitting this plan to the City Council, that means we'll be reconvening at some point. Staff will be getting back to all of you within 24 to 48 hours to set a date for the next meeting. And then we will go through the process of addressing any of the concerns because we still have a responsibility to submit these plans to the city council for their review, as Commissioner Sullivan indicated. And if they have concerns around them, then they will get back to us with those concerns, or they can pass on the maps once we do submit them. Is that a correct way to articulate the next steps? Okay, fine. So you'll be hearing from staff shortly to find a mutually satisfactory date for all. And if that is it, if there aren't any other questions, can I have a motion to adjourn? There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second, all in favor? All opposed? And thank you for your time and your energy and your commitment as well.